Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this historic bill signing. In just a minute, you're going to hear from Manhattan District Attorney Cy Vance, Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver, Senate Majority Leader Dean Skelos, Anne, who is the mother of a survivor of crime, and finally from our governor. For the past 2 months, the people in this room have stood up in their communities across this state to urge the expansion of the DNA database. I'd like to acknowledge some of the groups who are here with us today. We have the Superintendent of the State Police, Joe D'Amico, Putnam County Sheriff Don Smith, who's also the President of the New York State Sheriff's Association, Ulster County Sheriff Paul Van Blarcom, Niagara County Sheriff Jim Votour, Albany County Sheriff Craig Apple, Oneida County Sheriff Rob Mashall, Onondaga County Sheriff Kevin Walsh, Madison County Sheriff Alan Riley, and Orange County Sheriff Carl Du Bois. We also have with us a number of chiefs of police from across the state. City of Mechanicsville Police Chief Joe Waldron, who's also president of the New York State Association of the Chiefs of Police. The City of Norwich Police Chief Joe Angelino. Albany Police Chief Steve Krokoff. Hudson Police Chief Ellis Richardson, and the Dryden Police Chief Margaret Ryan. Importantly, also from across the state, we have the survivors of crime and their family members. And we also have with us many of the groups who represent those survivors: Joyful Heart, Safe Horizon, the Downstate Coalition of Crime Victims, and minorities in criminal justice. The bill that the governor will sign today will make New York the first state in the country to expand its DNA database so that DNA is taken from anyone convicted of a felony or of a penal law misdemeanor. In addition, the law also significantly expands defendants' access to DNA testing and comparison both before and after conviction. And it also expands discovery after conviction when there is a claim of wrongful conviction. The new law will make a world of difference by relying on science instead of luck to solve and prevent crimes. Most importantly, it will bring some justice to those who have suffered the effects of crime and certainty that we are no longer standing by letting crimes occur that we know we could prevent. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Governor Cuomo, good morning. I'm the Manhattan District Attorney, Cy Vance, but I would like to begin by acknowledging the many district attorneys who are here today and who have worked so long and cared so much about this public safety issue. Beginning, of course, with our President of the District Attorneys Association, Janet DeFiore of Westchester County, Rob Johnson of Bronx County, Derek Champagne of Franklin County, Sandra Doorley of Monroe County, we're here with her daughter today, Frank Sedita, Erie County, Joe McBride, Chenango County, Bill Grady from Dutchess County, Kate Hogan from Warren County, Richard McNally from Rensselaer County, Bob Carney from Schenectady County, Bill Fitzpatrick from Onondaga County, Joe Hines, my neighbor in Kings County, Scott McNamara from Oneida County, Kathleen Rice from Nassau County, and Whedon Wetmore from Chemung County here today with his son. Thank you so much, fellow DAs, for your hard work, for your leadership, the fruits of which we see today. You know, as district attorneys, I think we all, if I can speak for all of us, care about two very important principles: enhancing public safety and enhancing fairness in our justice system. And the passage and the signature of this bill today accomplishes those two primary objectives, because expanding the DNA database, as Liz Glazer has indicated, and expanding discovery and access to the database post-conviction will both help solve unsolved crimes, in doing so prevent future crimes, and help to exonerate the innocent. Now, I must thank also, and we all thank the legislature for their leadership and wisdom in passing this bill, and for the advocates and the crime victims here today. We cannot thank you enough for your years of work in this endeavor, which now we see coming to the goal line today. And finally, I'd like to thank the governor for his leadership, the individual whom I think got us over the goal line on this important public safety and fairness issue. We could not be more thankful, Governor, for your leadership, and I think as a law enforcement community and as a criminal justice community, we all have a reason to celebrate today. Thank you.
If I might, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the Assembly members who are present and who have worked significantly on this bill. Assemblymember Barbara Clark, who's seated here, Assemblymember Jeff Aubrey, who's somewhere around, and Assemblymember Joe Lenthal, the chair of our Codes Committee, who did yeoman's work on this particular issue. On their behalf, and on behalf of our colleagues on both sides of the aisle, let me say how pleased we are with this final agreement. Expansion of the DNA database, if carefully controlled to guard against wrongful dissemination or misuse, will be a valued investigative tool. Perhaps the most significant aspect of today's compromise will prove to be the dramatic and long overdue expansion of a judge's right to order production and examination of evidence necessary for a fair hearing on the question of guilt or innocence. Property and records which may lead to proof of a wrongful conviction should not lay buried in a file or drawer, impervious to review in open court. Unfortunately, this has been the case all too often. Today's reform, thanks to the hard work of the governor and our partners in government and the Senate, will bring sunlight and fairness to court proceedings examining claims of innocence. Let me take this opportunity to acknowledge Joe Lenthal, who for many years had taken the leadership role in advancing the use of DNA as an investigative tool and for reform of police practices. I also want to acknowledge the efforts of the Innocent Project, Chief Judge Jonathan Lippman, the New York State Bar Association, and the New York State Justice Task Force for supporting our efforts to have innocence provisions included in this legislation. When a person is wrongly convicted, the real perpetrator remains free to potentially commit other crimes while an innocent person is unjustly punished. Furthermore, victims are given a false sense of security that the actual perpetrator has been incarcerated. All too often, wrongful convictions occur because of mistaken eyewitness identifications or coerced, unreliable confessions. We must now move forward to enact additional reforms that will enhance the public safety and ensure that the real perpetrators are caught and that innocent people are not going to prison. As New York leads the nation and becomes the first state to enact an all-crimes DNA database, we will continue to push for reforms presented by the Chief Judge's Task Force, reforms in how identification proceedings and police interrogations are conducted. That said, I want to commend the governor again for his leadership on this issue and look forward to working with him and with our partners in the state Senate to improve our criminal justice system and enhance the security of all New Yorkers.
Good afternoon. What a great way to start the work week. With all of you here, Governor, thanks for inviting us. And this is truly one of the most significant criminal justice measures in the state history, and one that will put New York on the cutting edge when it comes to protecting our citizens. This was not a bill that came together quickly. It's the result of many years of negotiations and discussions, and certainly came to fruition this year under the governor's leadership. Our conference, our Republican conference, started expanding the DNA database back in 1999, again in 2004, and legislation that I sponsored in 2006 expanded the Databank to include all felonies in the Penal Law and 17 misdemeanors. Each time we expanded the database, we made it a better resource for police, district attorneys to apprehend and prosecute criminals and to exonerate the innocent. It simply made sense to expand it to include all crimes, and I thank DAs from across the state, as well as law enforcement groups and victim advocacy organizations that spoke out in favor of the expansion. In our conference, I want to recognize Senator Salan, who chairs the Codes Committee, Senator Marty Golden, who was a policeman, and Senator John DeFrancisco for their hard work and certainly the input from our entire conference. They worked tirelessly with the governor and with the Assembly to reach the final bill that we passed last week and is being signed today. Governor, I do want to thank you because this would not have occurred without your strong leadership. As I pointed out, over the years, we took incremental steps to expand and improve the DNA Databank. With your help and leadership, we were finally able to achieve an all-crimes databank that will make our families and our communities safer. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Anne, and I am the mother of a rape survivor. I would like to thank you all for the opportunity to return to Albany to speak about this important issue once again, and personally thank the governor for his leadership on an issue that he knows was dear to my heart. A little more than 11 years ago, my home was broken into by a man wielding a knife. The very first and last room that he came across was that of my 12-year-old daughter asleep in her bed. He proceeded to rape, cut, rob, and terrorize my child in her room, in our home, in her bed. His parting words to her were that if she told anyone, he would come back and kill not only her, but her entire family. This poor baby lay in her bed for we don't know how long until she felt safe enough to run upstairs to get me. Can you even begin to imagine the terror my child felt in those moments? For more than 10 years, my daughter lived with the fear that this predator would return to kill her because she was very much aware that he was still out there roaming the streets. My husband and I installed an alarm system, motion detector lights, and security doors, but they did nothing to allay her terror. This beautiful, vibrant child became reclusive and lost what little semblance of self-worth she tried to hold on to. She lost her childhood. She still suffers to this day, as do all of my children. This crime didn't happen in a bubble. It broke the collective heart of my entire family. When you're attacked on a dark street corner, you try to convince yourself it won't happen again as long as you stay away from dark street corners. But what do you tell yourself when you're raped in your own home, in your own bed? As long as I avoid home, I'll be okay. Maybe if I don't go to sleep, he won't come back. This is clearly not an option. The predator that raped my daughter and shattered my family wasn't caught in the act of raping one of his subsequent victims, of which there were several. He was caught because he stole money from his employer, a petty larceny. For 10 years, he put my family through a living hell. He raped other women. And the thing that finally got him put behind bars was stealing a few dollars. And the only reason that happened was because of the new laws at the time, allowing him to even be DNA tested for a petty larceny conviction. What if his conviction was for one of the dozens of misdemeanors for which we still did not collect DNA? If the misdemeanor for which this predator was charged had not been in the DNA database, he would still be a free man today. We got lucky that my daughter's attacker was arrested for a misdemeanor that required him to give a DNA sample. Otherwise, he might never have been caught. I've been pushing for the expansion of the DNA databank since day one because victims and their families shouldn't have to get lucky to see justice served. For a decade, I wrote letters urging the expansion of the DNA databank. For a decade, no one listened. There are no words to describe the emotions I feel today. Governor Cuomo didn't just listen, he took action. Expanding the DNA databank will not just solve and prevent crime, it will help protect other families from the pain my family has suffered over the last decade. pain no parent should ever have to endure. For more than 10 years, I watched my daughter push through this tragedy. I knew that if she could keep going, that I could keep going for her, that I could be a voice for her and so many other victims who have suffered in silence. My daughter is the reason I fought so hard for 10 years, and she is the reason I am here today. But with me today are Detective Richard Santangelo, who worked my daughter's case for 10 years and never gave up until we had an arrest, and DNA Unit Chief Eric Rosenbaum, who never allowed us to doubt that a prosecution would come. However, I also had to be here for another reason, to personally thank the governor for his commitment to protecting all of New Yorkers. He has shown what can be accomplished when leaders put politics aside and come together on this issue and on so many others. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming and thanking the Governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And good day to all of you today. Let me start with recognizing and thanking Senate Majority Leader Dean Skelos and Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver for their leadership and great work on this DNA bill, but also for an extraordinarily productive session last week where they had an extraordinarily good week in passing legislation that makes a difference for people all across this state. Let's give them a round of applause for their good work. Sponsors of today's bill, Senator Saland and Senator Golden. Let's give them a round of applause. Why don't you guys stand? Marty, Steve, why don't you stand, please? Thank you. Thank you. And Joe Lenthal and Barbara Clark on the Assembly side. Why don't you stand, please? Barbara, Joe Lenthal. I would also, if I might, this was a difficult issue to work through. Not that many of the issues we have here are extraordinarily simple, I want you to know. But the team, the entire team, did a great job on this, and the staff did a great job on this. Jim Yates for the Assembly, Robert Mahica for the Senate, and Mylan Dennerstein, my counsel. Let's give them a round of applause also. And the district attorneys who are here in force today and who were in force all across the state in making this a reality, Cy Vance and Janet DiFiore, the incoming president and the president, thank you very much, and all the DAs. Let's give them a round of applause. And Ann, we thank you. We thank you for your perseverance and for your courage and for that place that allowed you to take the energy and the pain that you must have felt and turned it to a positive and not to a negative. Ann has been a tireless advocate all across the state, and she has a fierce resolve to her. And one of the reasons we're here today is because of all of the hard work that Ann did. And I had little taste of that resolve. I was sitting next to Ann right here in the front row a few weeks ago. And we had a press conference like this about how important the bill was. And I leaned over to Ann and I said, well, you know, I'm going to do my best to get the bill passed. And she leaned back to me and she said, oh, I know you won't fail us, Governor. I had dreams that night, Ann. This is actually very simple at the end of the day. Criminal justice is about one thing. It is about the pursuit of the truth. That's what the DAs do. That's what the sheriffs do. That's what the attorneys do. They're looking for the truth. The truth to prove innocence, the proof to exonerate, the proof to prove guilt, the truth to punish the guilty, the truth to prevent crime and to protect the public. It comes down to the truth. And DNA is the state-of-the-art device mechanism to find the truth. That's all it is. It's the modern-day fingerprint. It revolutionizes the industry. It revolutionizes the practice. And not to use it was actually a way of avoiding the truth. And we did that for many, many years. And the truth is a double-edged sword. And the truth can prove guilt, and the truth can prove innocence. And that's what the justice system is all about. Finding the truth and doing what is right. And if the person is guilty, prove the guilt. And if the person is innocent, exonerate the innocent. And use every tool that you have. And DNA is the state-of-the-art tool. For New York now to become one of the leading states in the nation using DNA, in, I believe, the most comprehensive and effective fashion and balanced fashion, as you heard from the speaker. We want the DNA to help us solve crimes. We want the DNA also to exonerate people who are innocent. We want the DNA to take people who have been wrongfully convicted, and God forbid sitting in prison, and to prove their innocence. And DNA can take us down that road and take us down that road together. It has been, as you heard from everyone who came to the podium before me, a long road and a difficult road. This particular piece of legislation has been debated, talked about for many, many years. It's been actually about 7 years in the making to get to this point, because it is complicated and it is difficult. But today it worked. And the credit for today goes to the people in this room. This was an extraordinary effort on behalf of many organizations all across the state. It was an extraordinary effort by the men and women who serve as district attorneys across this state, the law enforcement community, lawyers all across this state who said enough is enough and went out and spread the message and organized people, police groups all across this state, and it resonated, and government worked. And for those of us who are in public service and endure all that goes along with public service, we do it for one reason, and one very simple reason. We choose to believe that public service is a vehicle to make this place a better place, that we're making the community a better community, that we're making the state a better state, that we're going to leave our children a better place than we had, and that public service is an opportunity to do that. Today, we did. Today, we fulfilled the promise of public service. This law makes this state a better state, a fairer state, a safer state, and that's what it's all about. I'm pleased and honored to be the governor of this great state, and will sign this bill into law. Thanks to you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Before we sign the bill, we'll take some questions, and I'd ask Ann and the Senate Majority Leader and the Speaker to join me. Cy Vance, please. Liz Glazer, Deputy Secretary, why don't you join us up here on the bill? Any questions? Okay, no questions. Seeing no questions, you have to act fast.
Governor, from time to time, lab delays can be an issue in this state. Are provisions made so that with this additional testing that there aren't going to be inordinate delays?
We believe that we will be staffed and we will have the system in place that can handle this increase in volume.
Governor, do you know why the Albany County District Attorney David Soares is not here? Was he opposing some features of the bill, do you know?
I believe that all the district attorneys supported the bill. I don't know, there are about 17 DAs who are here. I don't know where the other ones are or why they're not here. Do you know why they're not here? Person, you're having here?
My DA is here.
We offend anyone?
Kathleen, are you here?
45, yeah.
5 aren't here.
I don't know, Fred, why he's not here.
Governor, you said last time we were here talking about this that you didn't want this to go through the usual Albany deal-making process. Could you detail how this agreement came together and whether it was part of the usual Albany deal-making process?
my point, Nick, was that this bill hadn't passed for 7 years because in the past, one of the things that would happen is a bill is moving through the process and other things get added to it, which may not necessarily be relevant to that bill. And then it gets bogged down and there's division, there's opposition by one of the other items, and nothing happens. So we were trying to keep, and that happened to this bill for the past 7 years. We were trying to keep this bill on the topic, which was about DNA, and relevant to DNA on both sides. And I believe we did that, and I believe the proof is in the pudding because we're about to sign the bill.
Governor, many people who were somewhat opposed to this bill also wanted, different sort of so-called wrongful conviction reforms, interrogation, taping, eyewitness ID reforms, certain marijuana reforms. Do you have a position on those reforms? Do you plan to support those separately in separate legislation?
Many of them are good ideas, John, and we will be pursuing them, but they were separate from this bill. There are a lot of good things we're trying to get done. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't do anything until we can do everything. And I applaud the sponsors, Assemblyman Lenthal and Senator Saland in particular, who were very good and reasonable in separating the issues. And we have a lot more issues to talk about, videotaping, et cetera, but not in this bill.
Governor, Kyle Hughes here. What's the rationale for exempting some misdemeanor arrests from this law? It's such a valuable tool, it's like fingerprinting. Why would you not collect all the information that you could?
Yeah, basically, there was one notable exception, which is a small amount of marijuana, unless the person had a prior conviction. And if there's a prior conviction, then that conviction would also count.
Governor, there's a report out this morning from the Center for Public Integrity and a few other groups that gives New York a D in terms of its openness and transparency and also efforts to reduce corruption. I was wondering if you'd seen the report and had a reaction to it.
I haven't seen the report.
Governor, to follow up on Kyle's question, why leave out marijuana? Does this pave the way for additional reform when it comes to marijuana laws? This has long been an issue for advocates saying that there should be, less harsh penalties for those qualifications.
Yeah, and it's a valid topic, Zach, and one that we're willing to discuss. But it was different than DNA. And there's many issues in the field of criminal justice that we are discussing, that we'll research. There'll be other pieces of legislation. But this piece of legislation was on DNA. It was long overdue, and that's what we wanted to conclude. Okay? We'll sign the bill. Congratulations. nice to be here.
Right this way. Keep on moving in. All right. Thank you, everybody. Move this way. Right this way, sir. Back. Keep filling it around, guys. Move it around, we got a lot of guys. Keep moving that way, guys. Thank you. Here, there, then you got some, keep moving. Perfect. Thank you.
Smiling there, Joseph? Yeah. Smiling superintendent. I like when he's smiling. The smiley kind of guy anyway.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks. Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Good job.